For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's 8th practice of fall camp. It was a Saturday scrimmage in the Coliseum, and Shotgun, we anticipated a lot of evaluation to come out of this day because it seems like it's one of 2 scrimmages that USC will hold in fall camp. But it was interesting. It seemed like kind of a veteran rest day, at least for Kedon Slovis, Drake London. Those guys we didn't see too much. Drake London didn't even play at all. So what did you take away from this day?
If it was an evaluation day, it was an evaluation for 2s and 3s mainly. And now there's a couple of position groups that, that they're really looking at that they don't know who the starter is, but where the starters have been identified, those guys didn't do too much today. You talk about Kedon Slovis and Drake London, but on the other side, didn't see too much of guys like Chris Steele. Obviously Drake Jackson's not acclimated yet as far as NCAA, so he couldn't practice. A couple guys did step up behind him. Corey Foreman had a really nice day. Giuliano Falanico had a really nice day coming off the edge. Both those guys were in the backfield. Falanico had a sack. I think he had a tackle for loss as well. Foreman tipped a ball that ended up being caught still, but he's getting his hands on balls and was doing some things in the backfield. But overall, it was young guys and backups that were trying to prove themselves, basically. And it was basically the quarterback competition for that backup spot because Kedon Slovis had a couple of drives, and that was pretty much it. The rest of the day was for Miller Moss and Jackson Dart, and those 2 guys trying to battle it out to see who can get that backup spot.
See, usually this is something we see closer to kickoff after USC has had a lot of practices under its belt. But what do you take away from the first scrimmage being in this format?
Especially with the fact that there's only 2 scrimmages allowed this year. In the previous years, you could have 3. It seems a little strange to do that. I don't know if maybe it's an idea that you've got some guys that are nicked up right now, and maybe you want to get Keontae Ingram and Darwin Barlow. You want to see those guys and get those guys more reps when when they get healthy, and maybe that's what they're looking at. Otherwise, I'm just not real sure why you would do that first scrimmage. You really want to evaluate. I would want to know where my starters are at compared to everyone else. I wouldn't. I just don't think this team is good enough to say, okay, we know who these guys are and what they can do, and they've already proven themselves. I think when you're a team that wants to win championships and you lost in the championship game on your home turf, you should be putting it out there. Everyone should be going, balls to the wall basically in every type of situation where you can have full pad, scrimmage, type competition evaluation periods because, as the defensive coaches have told us this week, because there's fewer of them this year, it makes them that much more important. And I feel like today that they let that get away from them with some of those older players, and maybe they just feel like they're so comfortable with them that they don't need to know what they have in those guys, and they feel comfortable with what they do have. They just wanted to see the younger guys because those are the guys that got the most work.
I mean, this is a day where I believe Colorado's quarterback got hurt in practice. What's the split or benefit of having guys like Kedon Slovis? For the most part what he's going to do. Drake London, what he's going to do. Is it better at this point to just save and make sure you're healthy?
I mean, that's always a back and forth debate, whether to rest guys or try to keep guys healthy versus getting them out there. And if you listen to the defensive coaches this week, they said, they need to be able to hit. Craig and I have already talked about that. They need to be able to have those practices, and he wasn't very happy about the fewer number of contact practices this fall because he feels like guys have to be prepared for that so they don't get injured in a game. So, that's a back and forth debate, and we'll leave that one to the P. That's a tough one to answer. But USC is keeping those stars, your Heisman potential guy, your Biletnikoff potential guy. Those guys weren't doing too much today.
Now, talking about the young quarterbacks, true freshmen Miller Moss and Jackson Dart. Seemed like Jackson Dart was the more successful quarterback today. He was able to take more risks. He tried the deep ball many times and connected for 3 touchdowns. Not sure we can fully include what happened because we're restricted on what we can report, but it seemed like Dart had the better day today.
Yeah, he had some touchdown throws. He was really taking those shots. He was identifying one-on-one matchups and going for it. He was the guy that was leading the touchdown drives. A lot of drives stalled out. There were a bunch of penalties today on both sides going back and forth, some offsides, some pass interference. The offense, was not able to get in a good flow, really. It was very much a feast or famine type of day for the offense. There were never really a consecutive first down after first down after first down. Dart led the one drive that was, they were starting at the 35-yard line, the one full-length touchdown drive, and he had a couple when they were in some shorter situations. But overall, the offense was just kind of hit or miss on a lot of plays. They had several 15 to 20, 25-yard plays in there with some nice runs. Quincy Junti had a really nice run. Keenan Kristen had a nice run, but then he fumbled the ball. Ball security was an issue today as well. A couple of fumbles there. And even on special teams, there were some issues, securing the football as well on some punt returns and whatnot. So overall, I think there's a lot to work on from this scrimmage for USC. And part of that is when you play a lot of younger guys, you want to see what they got. You're going to get a couple more mistakes than if you have all your veterans in there too, I think.
We saw more mixing and matching on USC's offensive line, but the one constant remains that Jonah Monheim is getting first-team reps at left tackle. This was his 5th consecutive practice starting out with the first-team offensive line. What are you taking away from that battle? Because it looks like, obviously, Jonah Monheim's in the lead right now.
Yeah, we saw Brett Nealon come back after he missed yesterday's practice. So the starting 5 is pretty much the same one it's been all week, and that includes Jonah Monheim at left tackle. So he's kind of pushing himself into the start there. Now, we saw mixed and matching with a lot of different positions, but at left tackle, we saw Andrew Voorhees get some opportunities there. We saw Mason Murphy get some opportunities, along with Jonah Monheim and Cortland Ford, the 2 front runners for that position. So, they moved guys around a lot today. So, it was a true evaluation day in that, and they're going to be looking at that film pretty hard, I think, at the offensive line and seeing how some of those pairings worked out, how everyone worked together. Brett Nealon was in there for a couple drives early, like Keaton Slovis. I think he only played in the couple of Slovis drives, and then he came out, and again, that's the veteran. We know what we got in him. Let's see what we got behind him. But the offensive line was moving around a lot, so I think that Clay McGuire is going to be interesting to talk to him this week and see how he evaluates this scrimmage with as many guys moving in different positions.
A lot of questions surrounding USC's number 2 receiver. Who's that going to be outside of Drake London after he's the first option? Did today clarify anything for you on that front?
I don't think so. I mean, Taj Washington had a couple of nice catches. He had a nice catch and run from Miller Moss, found him in a hole in the zone, and then he made a couple guys miss and was kind of spinning around all over the place and showing what he can do after he gets the ball in his hands. And I think that's going to be an important aspect for USC's offense. But Gary Bryant's still not out there. They took a couple shots to Joseph Manjack, weren't able to connect. He's a guy that they're going to try to work down the field, and we saw that today. I thought John Jackson had another solid day, nothing spectacular, but a couple catches underneath, picked up a nice third down conversion there as well. And Kyle Ford had a nice day. He had one of those touchdown catches as well, going up over a defender. I think his was a back shoulder, if I remember correctly. But him and Jackson Dart connected on that one. Jackson Dart connected with Michael Jackson as well for a long ball, getting behind Jaden Williams. So, all those guys had some nice plays, but I don't think anyone really jumped out and was like, whoa, that's the guy, definitely.
Now, on the other side of the ball, it always helps the defense when they can go live, when they can tackle in full pad. So I think they looked ahead of the offense right now. What did you take away from the overall play? You
were seeing constant pressure. Todd Orlando is going to bring pressures from all over. We're seeing a lot of mixing and matching there as well. We saw, the first team basically front 7, and then the safeties would switch out. We're seeing Kalen Bullock getting a number of opportunities. He was back in there today after being banged up the last couple of days. He had a nice pass breakup in there. Chris Thompson had a nice tackle for loss. So I think that safety position battle is going to be ultra competitive outside of Isaiah Pullman. I think he's the one, constant there. And then the fumble of Keenan Christen, I believe it was Greg Johnson and Chase Williams that were combining on that hit to make the tackle. So you've seen two of the older guys making some plays too. So, the safeties made some plays, and I thought the pass rush did really well. Rajon Davis got in the backfield, and we believe he was the one that caused a fumble in the backfield of Miller Moss. May have been an incomplete pass. We're real sure on that one. But you're seeing the pressures come from different areas and guys trying to kind of learn where it was. And I thought actually the offensive line did a pretty good job, offensive line, and give the running backs credit for picking up a lot of those blitzes and stuff. The defense was able to get there a couple times, but that's what created a lot of those one-on-one matchups that they had on the outside, and those young quarterbacks taking their chances down the field because they were able to pick up the blitzes in front. Yeah, I thought both Brandon Campbell and Keaton Christen were able to pick up some blitz as well. But as far as special teams, you talked about it, didn't look too great overall with Parker Lewis and then with the return game. Yeah, Parker Lewis struggled when they were trying kick field goals. Their kickoff coverage, there were some open holes there. With the punt return, there were a couple of muff punts there. So just overall, kind of not a very good day for the special teams. That's something they're going to have to clean some things up there. And again, it's a number of young guys getting opportunities and trying to prove themselves that they deserve some time there. So how much of it is that? I thought the interesting thing, we saw 5 returners back there in different capacities. We saw Taj Washington, Mike Jackson, Brandon Campbell,
Keaton Christen.
Keenan, Kristen, and I'm blanking on the fifth one as well. But we saw 5 guys back there, and it's interesting that I think Gary Bryant will be thrown back in there. So there's 6 guys kind of vying for 3 positions. You know, your 2 kick returners and your punt returner spot. Will Gary Bryant take over 2 of those spots? To be determined. He's got to be healthy, and that'll be interesting when he comes back. But I thought it was interesting that we saw different rotations, kind of mixing and matching the pairings with those guys as well. So we saw some different things from the returners, just kind of mixing and matching those different guys as well.
Mm-hmm. We saw a couple of faces return. Elijah Winston, that's a guy who we haven't seen in a while. He did return in no pads, and I think he was just in the acclimation period, so he couldn't really do much today because of that. Britton Allen, we noticed he came out on Thursday. It looked like a pretty bad injury, and he was not dressed out today. He had a brace on his knee and a cane, so he looked like he was pretty hurt. And then Isaac Taylor-Stewart, he was a guy who had a brace or a knee sleeve on his knee, and he didn't perform or practice today. What did you take away from? There's a lot of injuries, a lot of guys in and out today.
I think Isaac Taylor-Stewart's one that stands out because he was a guy I was looking forward to seeing today and seeing, what improvements he's made from the spring, getting caught up with the acclimation period, and unfortunately was not out there. Did see Kobe Pepe back out, though he was in shorts, and he's got to catch up as well there. But getting him back and hopefully getting Jamar Sakona back soon, really important for that defensive tackle group. Stanley Taofu was a starter there, made a couple plays in the backfield, but they're going to need depth. I think they had 6 guys that were capable of that were playing today on the entire defensive line, not just the nose tackles, but the entire defensive line. Just because got some guys banged up right now and then some guys not available, so they need everyone to get back and get some work because that's a group that really needs to take a step forward for this defense to rise to its fullest capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Colin Mobley was also a guy rehabbing today, and then Darwin Barlow, Malcolm Epps, and like you mentioned, Gary Bryant. So those guys are still trying to work through whatever injuries they have. We'll get to talk to Clay Hilton, I believe, on Monday, so we'll get more information there. We didn't get to talk to anyone after today's scrimmage, so we'll get a better sense of how they evaluated today later on. But Shotgun, I know it doesn't sound like the greatest report from us today, but it is the 8th practice of camp. How do you weigh this scrimmage in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, you get 2 scrimmages now, so you got to make the most of them, and I felt like that there were some more opportunities to get better work today. They did some different things, from 2-minute drill to the full length to red zone, so they got some different situation work in there as well, so it wasn't just a straight back and forth type of scrimmage. So they were able to work on some different things there. So getting some work in, some quality work there as far as your situations that you need, but they're going to have to make a lot of that last scrimmage that they have. I think that they really need to take a step forward from what we saw today if they want to be the team they are capable of being when the season comes. I just don't feel like after today's scrimmage I would say that they're ready right now.
Alrighty, Shotgun, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here at the Coliseum?
Looking forward to seeing how they come back from this and bounce back and see if we see some different drills and stuff to work on what we did see today. That'll be interesting this next coming week of practice.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for USC's 8th practice of fall camp and its Saturday scrimmage. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.